Villagers were fishing when they were horrified to find a headless body tangled in their net. Seeing this, everyone in the village gathered in shock. Some claimed that a hungry beast lived in the river, while others believed an evil spirit roamed the village, feeding on human heads. So, the villagers invited a shaman to perform a ritual to drive away the evil. As the shaman stood before the headless corpse, its stomach began to move and twist unnaturally. He quickly drew his knife and sliced open the abdomen. The next second, several live eels slithered out from inside. Up to that point, 8 headless bodies had been found in the village. The shaman performed a spell and buried the corpses 2.5 kilometers away from the village. But the strange happenings didn't end there. A girl named Nya mysteriously vanished, leaving behind only one shoe by the riverbank. The villagers suspected that a ghost had taken her, and no one dared to step near the lake again. Everyone was terrified, and the only one still searching for Nya was her aunt, Shaman. But one person alone couldn't possibly find her. With no other choice, Shaman wrote a letter asking for help and sent it to a detective named Keen, far away. When Keen received the letter, he set out immediately. However, the moment he stepped into the village, he felt an eerie atmosphere all around, as if even the air itself was soaked in a mysterious gloom. Soon after, Keen met with Shaman. The villagers, consumed by fear, refused to help. Even the village chief believed Nya had been taken by an evil spirit and refused to send anyone to search for her. In the past, whenever accidents occurred in the village, the bodies would eventually surface. But this time, Nya had been missing for days, and all they found was a single shoe. Shaman then took Keen to visit Nya's father. He said the last time he saw Nya was 5 days ago, and nothing about her behavior seemed unusual. Keen asked if Nya had any suitors. He suspected that maybe she had eloped, but her father denied it firmly, saying Nya had always been single. She was gentle and kind and had never argued with anyone. That ruled out revenge as a motive. Suddenly, Shaman remembered something. 2 weeks earlier, someone had broken into Nya's room at night, seemingly trying to harm her. Luckily, Nya had managed to stab the intruder's hand with a knife, forcing him to flee through the window. Keen examined Nya's bedroom and found it simply furnished, though there were quite a few expensive trinkets. Shaman admitted she had found it odd, but hadn't thought much of it. The clothes in the wardrobe were neatly arranged, proving that Nya hadn't run away from home. Keen then checked Nya's shoe and found a burdock fruit stuck to the sole. He looked around, but saw no such plants nearby. However, the fisherman swore he had found the shoe by the lake. He also mentioned that the village chief had briefly investigated the case, but abandoned it after just 2 days. The fisherman whispered that there was a rumor saying the village chief had offended the evil spirit, and even his daughter claimed she had seen ghosts in their house. Keen frowned. As a man who didn't believe in superstition, he dismissed such talk as nonsense. He was determined to uncover the truth. Meanwhile, the chief's daughter, Tuyet, was bathing at home. Suddenly, the water in the basin began to overflow. Watching the water flow inexplicably toward her feet, Tuyet stood frozen in place, completely at a loss. Then, out of nowhere, blood began to flow from her nose. Her scream instantly drew her mother's attention. Fortunately, it was only a false alarm. Tuyet was not in any real danger. Elsewhere, Keen sought out the village shaman for answers. The shaman's expression grew grim as he said that the evil spirit killed purely out of hatred, with no purpose or desire. He warned Keen that its dark power was far beyond that of any ordinary exorcist. But Keen didn't believe in ghosts, so the shaman handed him some incense and a talisman, telling him to take care of himself. Keen showed him the burdock fruit and asked where it might have come from. The shaman explained that such fruits only grew near the waterfall. So, under Shaman's guidance, they went to the falls and found the plants growing there. While searching, Keen noticed something strange. The soil beneath the leaves was stained red, as if soaked in blood. Shaman panicked, believing it might be Nya's. Keen quickly calmed her down, saying it was too early to jump to conclusions. It might just be animal blood. They followed the stream further, but found nothing. Later that night, back in his lodging, Keen examined the shards of a broken ceramic plate, hoping to find a clue. Suddenly his nose started bleeding. A pale mist filled the room. The next second, Keen found himself standing by the waterfall. Through the fog, he could see Nya's figure, but then a pair of hands grabbed her ankles and pulled her into the water. Keen ran forward to save her, but the spirit dragged her under before he could reach her. When he finally caught up, only Nga's severed head remained. The scene shifted, and a terrified Keen found himself back inside the house. Nga's head was there with him. When Kien woke up from his faint, he quickly grabbed the incense the shaman had given him and lit it. After a long while, he finally regained his senses. The next day, Keen and Haiman resumed the investigation. A woman offered a key lead. She had seen Tuyet arguing with Nga on the day she disappeared. Nga had left work earlier than usual that day, but hadn't gone home. Instead, she was heading toward the waterfall. No one saw her again afterward. They hurried to question Tuyet. Tuyet admitted they had argued but said it was over something trivial. However, Nga had threatened to tell Tuyet's fiancé, Thak, about it. They then went to Thak's home to question him. His father said he hadn't seen Thak for a week and assumed he was working in his pottery studio in the bamboo forest. Keen asked to see some of Thak's ceramics. Upon closer inspection, he noticed the engravings at the bottom looked familiar. They were identical to those on the broken plate from Nga's room. Keen and Haiman then went to the bamboo forest together. Haiman explained that the pottery workshop used to be bustling until workers began experiencing strange events. Eventually, everyone quit, and the place was abandoned. Keen told Haiman to wait outside while he went in alone. Under the faint light, he saw Nga standing there. He took a cautious step forward, only to freeze in horror as a pair of wet hands rested on Nga's shoulders. Just as he drew his knife, both Nga and the spirit vanished into thin air. It was only then he realized it had been an illusion. He continued to the second floor and found what looked like a body lying under a mat. Outside, a man approached Haiman. At the same time, Kien lifted the mat. The man was Thak, the person they had been searching for. Under the mat wasn't a corpse at all, just Thak's blanket. Keen asked why his ceramics weren't being sold, yet Nga had several pieces in her room. Thak hesitated, but eventually confessed. He had met Nga by chance and fallen in love with her. They grew close, and he even taught her how to make pottery. The ceramics in her room were gifts from him, but fate was cruel. Thak had been betrothed to Tuyet since childhood. Under family pressure, he had to break things off with Nga. Thak had even asked his father for permission to take Nga as a concubine. But Tuyet's family was a prestigious one in the region, and they would never allow Tuyet to share a husband with someone of Nga's low status. That was why Nge and Tuyet had fought on the day she disappeared. Nge had demanded that Thak marry her, saying she was carrying his child, and if he refused, she would tell everyone. Though it would shame Nga, it would also ruin both families' reputations. Tuyet accused Nga of being manipulative, while Thak swore he never had any improper relations with her and claimed his family was lying. With both sides contradicting each other, the case became even more tangled. Kien began to analyze the situation. If Nga really was pregnant, the biggest loser in the scandal would be Thak's family. Haiman suspected that the family had killed Nga to silence her, but they had no solid evidence. With no clear leads, Kien decided to start with the man who broke into Nga's room. That night, the intruder hadn't stolen anything valuable. He had only smashed Thak's ceramic gift. Perhaps his real intention was to destroy the evidence of their relationship. Haiman had mentioned that Nga wounded the intruder's hand. So, the next day, Keen proposed organizing a village game of knife throwing, offering a jade bracelet to anyone who hit the target. It seemed like harmless fun, but it was Keen's plan to find the man with a scar on his hand. The event drew a crowd, and Keen watched secretly from the side. Sure enough, his plan worked. He spotted a man with a scar on his hand. The thief's name was Dong. He had once worked for the village chief but was fired for stealing. After being blacklisted, no one would hire him, so he turned to theft. That was why he had broken into Nga's room. When they searched Dong's house, they found Thak's ceramics and Nga's silver bracelet. Keen studied him carefully and felt he might not be directly involved in Nga's disappearance. During questioning, Dong gave away a crucial detail. He said that as he fled Nga's room that night, he saw Mrs. Vuong, the chief's wife, leaving Nga's father's room. He suspected that Nga might have witnessed their affair, and Mrs. Vuong killed her to keep it secret. Kien went to speak with Nga's father, but his story completely disproved the theory. He confirmed that Mrs. Vuong had indeed visited him that night, but only to beg him to convince Nga to leave Thak. Tears in her eyes, she admitted that Thak couldn't stop thinking about Nga and was even willing to ruin his engagement for her. She handed Nga's father a large sum of money, begging him to make Nga cut ties with Thak completely. This proved that Tuyet's claim about Nga's pregnancy was a lie, fabricated to protect herself. But Tuyet still refused to admit her wrongdoing, trying to defend herself. Haiman's emotions flared up, and she shouted that they already had a witness who could prove Tuyet had been to the waterfall. Tuyet's face turned pale, and her nose suddenly began to bleed again. Looking up, she saw the ghostly figure of Nga, covered in wounds. Terrified beyond reason, Tuyet finally confessed. She admitted that she had met Nga at the waterfall and that they argued. Overcome with jealousy, she struck Nga. During the struggle, Nga pushed Tuyet, who then picked up a stone and smashed it against Nga's head. Nga fell unconscious, bleeding heavily. Tuyet panicked and ran home. When she later returned, Nga was gone, though the bloodstains remained. Keen suspected Tuyet hadn't told the whole truth. Mrs. Vuong guessed that Nga had been taken by a water spirit, since she fell unconscious near the waterfall. With no more clues, Kian arrested Tuyet for assault. That night, Kian returned home and was horrified to see Nga's soaked body lying on the floor. When he stepped closer, she suddenly turned into a headless corpse. Then a monstrous figure appeared, gnawing on her severed head. Keen tried to flee, but the creature grabbed his legs. At that crucial moment, his assistant arrived and the creature vanished. After regaining composure, they reviewed the old case files about the headless murders. The assistant pulled out a record from 30 years ago describing a family of 14 who were all decapitated. They had been accused of rebellion and plotting an uprising during a famine. A tip-off had exposed them, and they were all executed. The next day, Keen returned to the shaman and asked if the old case was connected to the current murders. The shaman said it was too long ago, and he couldn't remember, but warned Keen to stop the investigation and leave immediately. He believed Keen had been cursed because the candles on the altar, which never went out, had extinguished the moment Keen entered. Clearly, the evil spirit was close. But Keen refused to give up. He believed there were no ghosts, only monsters in human form. Meanwhile, Mrs. Vuong's maid came to her in a panic, saying the masked man wanted more money. At that moment, the truth began to surface. Nga wasn't dead at all. She had been kidnapped and held in a cave. The masked man was none other than Dong, and the maid was his wife. The two had staged the whole thing to extort money from Mrs. Vuong. The maid had seen Tuyet attack Nga and told Dong, who then hid Nga in the cave. When Tuyet returned later, Nga was gone. Later, the maid went to Mrs. Vuong and lied that a masked man had stopped her in the street, saying Nga was in his hands. He told her that if Mrs. Vuong was willing to pay, he could help get rid of Nga. Mrs. Vuong believed it and paid a large sum. A week later, she learned Nga was still alive. To eliminate her for good, she promised the masked man even more money if he killed Nga. That night, the maid told Dong about the offer. Driven by greed, Dong agreed without hesitation. Soon after, a woman's headless body was found by the lake. Haiman broke down in tears, thinking it was Nga. Nga's father also believed it was his daughter, and unable to bear the grief, took his own life. But Keen noticed something strange. The skin of the corpse was too smooth. If it had been in the water for days, it should have turned pale and wrinkled. It was obvious that the body had just been thrown into the lake. Even more telling, the corpse's feet were too large for Nga's shoes. To confirm his suspicions, Keen exhumed the previous headless victims and found clear differences. Then, Haiman remembered something. The silver bracelet found in Dong's house. It was her gift to Nga, and Nga had never taken it off, not even when she slept. But they had found it in Dong's house. At the time, Haiman hadn't thought much of it, but now she realized that Dong might be the one who had actually kidnapped Nga. So they quickly rushed to Dong's home. Meanwhile, Mrs. Vuong visited Tuyet in prison. When she learned that the maid knew about the waterfall incident, she suspected betrayal and began to interrogate her. Unable to bear the pressure, the maid confessed everything. The woman's corpse had been a random body Dong used to fake Nga's death. When Mrs. Vuong learned Nga was still alive, she arranged to meet Dong again. Dong, realizing his wife had betrayed him, killed her on the spot. Mrs. Vuong, fearing for her own life, struck a deal with him. If she could see Nga dead with her own eyes, she would give him a fortune and help him escape. What neither of them knew was that Keen and Haiman were watching from outside. They followed Dong and Mrs. Vuong to the cave, where Nga was still alive. Haiman was overwhelmed with emotion at the sight of her niece, but they stayed hidden, waiting for the right moment. Dong led Nga out of the cave, demanding to see the money before he acted. Mrs. Vuong told him the money was hidden near his home. As they exchanged the payment, Nga suddenly broke free and shoved Dong aside. When they tried to catch her, Keen rushed in to stop them, and a fierce fight broke out. At the same time, Haiman reunited with Nga, and the two embraced with tears in their eyes. But Mrs. Vuong arrived, attempting to stab Nga. Haiman pushed Nga away and stayed to fight her instead. Meanwhile, Dong and Keen continued their brutal struggle. When they finally paused, Keen noticed the same monstrous spirit watching from the shadows. As Keen stood dazed, Dong launched another attack, and Keen quickly began to lose his strength. But Keen refused to give up and forced himself to keep fighting against Dong. Finally, he found the right moment, picked up the broken blade, and drove it straight into Dong's leg. But Dong's endurance was frightening. He kept fighting even while bleeding out. Meanwhile, Nga came back and joined Haiman in taking down Mrs. Vuong, and together they finally managed to subdue her. On the other side, both Dong and Keen were already covered in wounds. By the time Haiman arrived, Dong was completely dead. Keen, on the other hand, looked utterly exhausted. The next day, Nga, who had been missing for so long, finally returned to the village. Thak came to see her the moment he heard the news. They held each other tightly. After overcoming countless hardships, the lovers were finally reunited. Mrs. Vuong was sentenced to prison for attempted murder. Thus, Nga's disappearance case finally came to an end. Keen began preparing to return home. However, the mystery surrounding the so-called evil spirit in the village still remained unsolved. Before leaving, Keen suggested that Haiman visit the shaman to get some incense and talismans for protection. But Haiman said that her respiratory system was too sensitive to the smell of incense, and besides, she had never been haunted by any spirit. Hearing this, Keen suddenly realized something was wrong. He remembered that ever since he stopped burning the incense, he hadn't seen the spirit again. So he handed the remaining incense to the old herbalist for examination. The herbalist discovered that the incense contained a plant called manchita grass. This plant carried a toxin that caused hallucinations and deepened psychological fear. The gentler a person's nature, the more likely they were to see unclean things, and nosebleeds were a sign of their body resisting the poison. Now, the truth behind the so-called evil spirit was finally emerging. Keen revisited the case from 30 years ago in which an entire family of 14 had been decapitated. Upon closer inspection, he found that the family actually had 15 members, but only 14 had been beheaded. The sole survivor was a 10-year-old boy. And that boy was now the shaman. He had lied that the incense could ward off evil and distributed it to every household. But in reality, it was all meant to cloud the minds of the villagers. He did all this to avenge his 14 slain family members. Every headless corpse was his doing. He wanted everyone in the village to experience what it felt like to be beheaded. When Keen arrived at the shaman's house, the man had already fled, leaving behind only a letter. In it, he wrote that his family had been wrongfully accused and destroyed because of the village chief's greed. Eventually, they found the chief's severed head in the shaman's house, while his body had been dumped into the lake. At that moment, Keen's eyes suddenly fell on the coat rack, and the cotton hanging from it caught his attention. It was padding from a thick winter jacket. He realized the shaman had fled to a cold northern region. So Keen mounted his horse and galloped toward the northern road. A new pursuit had just begun. Well, that's all for today's share. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.